Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Magic is Real podcast. I am Shannon. I'm your host. This video is a follow-up to a video that I made a couple of weeks ago about my ayahuasca experience. And I wanted to follow up because psychedelic healing isn't a one and done thing. And I'm not making this video because I endorse psychedelic therapy specifically. In fact, I would say that please do not do it if you are bipolar or have bipolar or schizophrenia in your lineage. Please be very thoughtful and mindful. Please make sure you're medically cleared to do it if you are going to do it. But I did want to just provide my experience for anyone who might be curious, who might be thinking about trying it or just have a general curiosity and don't want to do it, but would like to hear other people's stories. So if you would like to hear part one, it is available on the podcast. You can check it out. It's a couple of episodes before this one. At the same time, I have started reading a book by Michael Pollan called How to Change Your Mind. There was a documentary with the same name on Netflix, which I highly recommend if you're interested. And I was browsing through Goodwill and found the book and thought I would pick it up. Why not, for $3? So it's a really excellent book. I usually have trouble reading just because I have ADHD tendencies. And this book is so captivating and well written, and he shares a lot of anecdotes. What I found really interesting is Michael himself, this is a best-selling author, and this book was a #1 New York Times bestseller. What I'm finding so interesting about it is that Michael started researching and exploring and using psychedelics later in life. He talks about being 60 or over, and he's not the type of guy. You know, I look at him, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a guy my parents would be friends with, and my parents are not hippies. And I remember in college when I tried psychedelics, acid and psilocybin, I felt so guilty about it. I was like, oh my God, my parents would kill me. They'd be so worried. And after college, I was like, I'll never, ever do them again. I don't want to do any kind of drugs or anything like that outside of, recreational marijuana or something. And thought, I never need to do that again. I kind of had this guilt around it or this shame around it. Like, I felt like I was some kind of a druggie. What's really interesting as I'm delving more into the neuroscience aspect, and I believe that there is a spiritual aspect to psychedelic use, but also there is a simple neuroscience aspect to it that's really interesting and that Michael delves into in the book. And what he talks about and what I'm finding, something that really hit me was just like any psychedelic experience, whether it's psilocybin, whether it's acid, whether it's ayahuasca or any other kind of plant medicine. Something he said in the book that struck me, and I'm paraphrasing, so please know that I might not be exactly saying it the way that he would prefer, but is that outside of the spiritual aspect, there really is a neuroscience aspect that's so interesting that I found to be true. Granted, I've only done this I've only done ayahuasca twice and 2 nights in a row. So I have very limited experience. And what I found was it wasn't about the actual experience itself. Because during my experience, I basically heard things that I already know. It's not like some new revelation or anything I didn't know. The messages were you need to learn to receive, stop making yourself small, stop shrinking yourself for other people's comfort, stop giving your power away to other people and their opinions and their judgments, and stay firm in yourself, know who you are, trust yourself. You could still be open to other people's opinions without what other people think making you feel shame or guilt or small or wrong. And the overarching message I received was you need to stop making yourself so small. No, sorry. You need to learn to receive without guilt, without feeling like you have to earn it. and just let people support you. And once you do that, you're also going to see abundance in all other areas of your life. So even just energetically, it doesn't matter who or what you're receiving, who you're receiving from, or what form that receiving takes. So if it's energetic, if it's just letting someone support you, it's the same thing as receiving money or gifts. The energy of receiving is all the same. This is something that I already had been thinking about. It's not like I didn't know this, but I still kept having the experience of lack showing up. So I knew there was a block, and I kept manifesting and writing and journaling and saying, I'm ready to receive. I really am. I'm ready to let all blocks go that are in the way of my receiving. I'm so ready to receive. I know I'm worth it. I know I don't have to earn it. So, okay, so I took that away from it, right? Well, that doesn't mean that just because I took a psychedelic means that, okay, now I'm healed. I get it. I already knew this. Sometimes, just like in any kind of healing, I'm in 12-step, right? From sex and love addiction, in sex and love addiction recovery for a very long time. So I'm very self-aware. I know my patterns. I know why I do things. But why am I still sort of, even though my emotions around it might be different now, where I have coping tools, I feel peaceful. I don't act out anymore. I'm not actively seeking for other people to soothe me anymore. I'm very aware of it, and yet there's still attachments that are there that are old habits, kind of old habits die hard. So all of this I knew, right? And I was told, even by my guides, that there would be more that unfolds. You do the ceremony, but then weeks after, you're going to keep having more epiphanies. And then at least my guides are wonderful with following up, checking in. How are you feeling? What are you noticing? Let's process together. So it's actually a lot of kind of really helpful therapy. And it's wonderful to have guides that also just happen to be amazing at helping, holding space and processing, and have a gift for articulating and speaking back what you're expressing. So that's something that I was really lucky to have. So first of all, one of my things is I've had severe anxiety to the point of having muscle tension dysphonia. I have a mind-body syndrome called muscle tension dysphonia that has been, there are several medical reasons for it, but also it's a mind-body syndrome that comes with putting a lot of stress on yourself, not speaking up. All the throat muscles become very tight and tense, and then it becomes effortful to speak. As a voice actor, this destroyed my career for a few years. I'm still just now kind of gaining momentum again. And obviously podcasting, which is so freeing. But for years, my voice was like this. I could barely speak. And yes, it started with a physical ailment in the gut, but it also became just this lack of being able to express myself. But what I noticed is that after having done the ceremony, and I don't want to promise this will happen for everyone. It's not a quick fix. Anxiety was gone. I had stopped taking anti-anxiety medication even before ceremony. And I always said I'll never be able to go off it. I just have too sensitive a nervous system. And if I go off of it, then I tend to lose my voice. And I have to just keep on it so that I can cope in a world that feels very overwhelming to my sensitive nervous system. 2 weeks in, I am calmer and more at peace than I've ever been. So, do I attribute this to the spiritual part? Kinda. And then also what's so interesting, and again, I'm not a doctor or a scientist, from what I understand, some psychedelics, including psilocybin, which is why a lot of people do psilocybin therapy, resets your brain. So if you've got PTSD, it can sort of be a reset for your brain to go back to the time before the trauma. It can kind of reset your brain to go back to before it became chronically anxious. Now, again, I'm not a doctor, so please don't quote me on that, but this is what I've come to understand, and this is what a lot of people have reported. I have not felt this balanced and calm in a long, long time. Now, one of my issues is fear of lack. always having been freelance, it's been really unstable financially. Sometimes I'll have money and then all of a sudden I have none for a long time. So there's this cycle of debt and interruption of cash flow. And sometimes, I'll get money, but then by then I'm in debt. So it's been this ongoing theme that has become a story, and I'm aware of that. So weeks leading up to and during ceremony, my bank account is negative. Normally this would send me into an absolute frenzy, but I was like, I just know it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Everything's okay. I still have life. I still have breath. I still have a roof over my head. And all of a sudden, this last 2 weeks, money just started coming in from unexpected places. Gifts, like relatively high dollar amount gifts out of nowhere. A friend just gave me money because she's like, I inherited some money and I want you to have this. Now, normally I would say, please don't do that. No, I don't want to take it. But I remembered, receive. And I just said, thank you so much. I love you. And I practiced she said, I want to do this and you're not paying it back. This is something that's coming from me. Then I booked a voiceover job. Then some money I was not supposed to get from a voiceover job. There were some changes in the terms after we recorded. And they were like, actually, we're not going to use you in all the spots after all. Then they just gave me the full amount anyway. Then normally there's a voiceover source that I use, platform that I use, and normally it's a 90-day payout. So I'm sitting there waiting for my checks for 90 days. Suddenly they changed their terms and we're like, we're now going to pay every Friday. So I got another check. And then my parents gave me money for my birthday. And then I had people call me for work. Like it was just like, it wasn't about the actual ceremony, but in ceremony, I chose to release and receive. The medicine told me, just let me take care of you, please. You just got to relax and trust. I got you. And she just held me like a baby and just rocked me for hours. And I just laid there and she said, just receive, just let me take care of you. And all of a sudden it was like the financial block was gone and money just started flowing and I didn't even have to earn it. I didn't do anything really to earn it. I mean, obviously voiceover work, I did an audition, but it had been slow for months. And every day, basically what the medicine is doing is calling you, not just to identify what you need to work on, but to put it into action. So there's an area in my life where I have done a lot of healing, but I'm still settling for less and telling myself, it's okay, I don't need more. It's fine. I don't need more. I'll just take the bare minimum because it's good enough. And before, I already knew that I was settling and I knew that I wasn't in alignment with my higher self, but I still had that old habit of, but I still want to keep this thing. I still want to hold on to it. It's like a binky. I'm like, it's just a habit. Like I just want my binky. But suddenly the attachment is gone. And I can't explain that. Maybe it's because of the reprogramming of my neural pathways because of the psychedelics. Maybe it's because the addiction is now broken where I no longer feel the attachment. I feel like I'm ready to let it go without any kind of drama or big emotion. I'm just like, yeah, I don't want that anymore. I don't even have a craving for it, which is why a lot of addicts use psychedelic therapy. And there is controversy because people will say, why are we encouraging addicts to take psychedelics? That's a drug. I know why. I could see, because the attachment's gone. I'm not saying it works for everyone, but I've heard miraculous stories of addicts doing ayahuasca ceremonies and being like, I no longer have the craving. It's gone. But I've also had a friend recently who told me after years and years of an addiction, it wasn't anything like a spiritual awakening. It was just, I just decided I don't want to do, I prayed, please take this away from me. I think that's what he said. I'm sorry if I'm misquoting you, friend. But he said, like, I just was like, I'm ready to get sober and I'm going to start going to meetings. And he's like, and within a day, the craving was gone. which he's like, but I do see how that's spiritual. It was almost like I just asked for support and it just, the craving went away. So it's so interesting. And as I'm reading this book on, called How to Change Your Mind, which if you're interested, I highly recommend it. It is so fascinating from both uh, like a neuroplasticity and neuroscience perspective and and a bit of spiritual perspective, written by a guy that I think everyone, if you're not somebody who's into the woo, he's someone you can relate with. I was like, oh yeah, he'd totally be my dad's friend. And like I said, my dad's more of like a traditional guy. And I'm like, I bet if he sat, he'd be someone that would sit at our dinner table and you would never picture that he's into psychedelics. Now, I'm not saying that I'm suddenly going to do psychedelics all the time and be like, let's do this all the time. I don't necessarily need to. But I find the science of it so interesting and how it's helping so many people who have that last missing piece, or they're just having trouble kicking something, or they're in trauma. And again, I say this, I really want to be responsible and say it's not for everyone. And I don't think everyone should do it. But I'm just saying what my experience is in case you're curious. All I'm doing is telling you how it affected me and how this week I've never felt more grounded. I've never felt more supported. And all these synchronicities are coming together. I'm doing a Kabbalah workshop. And of course, I open it up and it's all about receiving. And everything that is in the workshop is like, oh, this is exactly what I was just naming, which is like, what's your tikkun, which is like your karma in the Kabbalah. I've heard it pronounced both ways. Mine is low self-worth. And even though I'm like, but I have so much self-esteem now, I've done all the work, I feel great about myself, I feel so full of self-esteem now that I'm like, why am I still stuck? I actually get it now. I like myself. I live with integrity. I respect myself. But it's that old wiring. The body keeps the score. So in a sense, for me, ayahuasca was more of a somatic release. It was like, oh, so this is what I wanted to say. Michael Pollan in the book talks about how when you take psychedelics, it expands your mind past where your brain knew it could go. And your mind, I believe your mind is separate from the brain. So it's basically like allowing you to see beyond what you can normally see. So even though I was like, but I know all this, why am I not sort of getting there? Like, what am I missing? All it really did was expand my mind even a little bit more to be able to see even further and he says basically it's a repatterning and a changing of the way you think. Just like in a subtle energetic way, it's like a shift. I can't even put it into words because I don't know why suddenly I don't feel attached to that thing I was attached to for so many years. Like why all of a sudden is my binky just a binky and not like something that I need to put in my mouth? Why all of a sudden am I like, I'm fine without it? And I just find that really interesting. So I think that there can be great benefits to it. I did say in my other video that it's one part the actual compound and that, and I do believe that it does have its own spirit. I also am diving into how plants are also highly sentient, intelligent beings, which also makes it tough because I already have kind of given up meat except for fish. Not that that makes it better, but it's just like I just now have trouble putting meat into my mouth because I think about the animal. No judgment to anyone who eats meat. I've done it my whole life. If it's humane, I don't have a problem with it. I just can't tolerate it. Now I'm like, so can I not even eat vegetables because they're so smart and they can talk to us and communicate? It makes it tough to realize that every single living thing has a consciousness. I digress. But I do believe there is an individual spirit within each plant and each compound. And that's very valid. And I do believe there was a connection with the spirit world. But I have that anyway. I don't need to do psychedelics. And you have that too. So psychedelics are not necessary to achieve connection with the other side, as we call it, with higher self, with guides, with angels, with spirits, with loved ones. We do not need any kind of a drug. In fact, generally I'd say I don't encourage it. I think you can learn and you would probably be better to just learn how to connect with the spirit world organically without any kind of aid. You don't need it. But I was interested from a research perspective on what this would do. And the more I read this book, the more I'm fascinated by neuroplasticity and the rewiring of our neural pathways. And you can do that through EMDR as well, and biofeedback and things like that. But this is just something that's I find fascinating. And I would love to hear your experiences. If you want to share them in the comments, if you want to reach out to me at magicisrealshannon@gmail.com and share your thoughts. I know when I listen to podcasts, I often feel like, oh, I wish I could chime in. I totally get it. I resonate with this. I want to share how what they just said resonates. And I love hearing from you. So that's the 2-week out update. And like I said, this isn't something I now think I have to do all the time or I'm like reliant on it. It's just that it really did make sense to me that all of a sudden things are in flow, like really in flow. And I'm seeing that anytime I doubt, it's easy to doubt, let me say. It's so easy to doubt. My cat just had to have $4,000 surgery. The IRS wants $5,000 from me. You know, clients were taking 90 days to pay me, and I'm just like, I'm drowning in this. But as much as you can and as much as I can, I'm really trying. We'll do this together. It doesn't mean sit inside and do nothing and never take a step forward. But to the best of your ability, keep doing your thing. Keep putting your best foot forward. But also there's a whole spirit team behind you. It doesn't mean that hard things won't happen. It doesn't mean that sometimes you won't get evicted and end up living in your car or that someone won't die. Usually it's because you needed to learn a lesson in that. And so I'm not even going to say everything's going to be rainbows and roses and bunnies. But I am noticing that the minute I really not just identified it, but like something, identifying it while reprogramming the brain. I think that's what made the difference. And that's just a theory. That's where I'm at now. In a month, I might have a different idea about it. But I wanted to share that with you just in case anyone is curious about what my ayahuasca journey was like for me. Everyone's will be different. Some people have told me they like shot off to another planet. And that didn't happen for me. But my guides were also very mindful about not overdosing and being careful about dosing just because I have a mild heart condition and I'm sensitive. So they're like, we're going to be very conservative. But I also wanted to share something super cool about this. I have a friend who took ayahuasca while she was breastfeeding. She wasn't aware that the medicine would still be in her breast milk. And her kid told me this story like not too long ago. And she breastfed pretty late. So the kid was old enough to voice her experience. But it was so funny because I told her, hey, I did this thing and I know you've done it. And her kid is old enough to chime in on the conversation. And my friend said, you know, what's so interesting is that obviously I didn't know that this was going to happen, but the day after I took the medicine, I breastfed my kid, and my kid said to me, Mom, there are these women that just won't leave me alone. And she said, one looks like Dora the Explorer, and she's got a crown of flowers around her head. And the other woman, it looks like, and she named a woman of South American descent that they knew. And she's like the mother. So it's like mother and child. And she also has a crown of flowers around her head. Well, that's so interesting to me because it's talked about how the spirit of ayahuasca is a woman. And she is an indigenous woman. And how would a 3-year-old know that? And she's like, these women were just talking to me. And I talked to the kid about this recently, and she's like, yeah, they were just talking. She goes, it was like, she's 11 now. She goes, it was like I was the main character. And she's like, I loved it. And she said, like, these women just were talking to me and they were on my ceiling all night. And, say what you will about that, but she's also one of the most mature, wise, amazing kids I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. And it was so cool to hear her share that she saw it as two South American woman and her child. So I think that there is something so profound about the spirituality aspect. And also, it's not just what you see in your visions or hear during the experience, it's then the integration after the fact. And how once those things come to the surface, the rest of your life and the following weeks, you have an opportunity to put those things into action, to respond differently. And so now, as I'm doing the Kabbalah workshop, it keeps saying things like, okay, where do you stay quiet? Where do you not speak up? And then how about this week you take contrary action, essentially? And let's this week do it differently. And it's like this time when that trigger shows up, how about we respond differently? This time, now that we're so hyper aware, while our brains are still malleable, let's choose a different pathway. So, love to hear your thoughts, and thank you for letting me share. I think there's so much stigma still around this, and that's why I'm talking about it. And yet I do have vulnerability hangover feelings about it sometimes when I put it out there, because there's still that Gen X person in me who was told, like, you're a druggie if you use psychedelics. And one thing that's really interesting too is that unless you already are prone to psychosis, uh, this is Michael Pollan says in his book, and this is what I've found, is that psychedelics won't damage your brain. You might be prone to psychosis, and therefore it could trigger a psychotic episode, so please be careful. But it isn't something, I mean, actually, alcohol does actually alter your brain. It actually kills brain cells. I don't know if that's the technical term, so don't beat me up for that. Feel free to correct me if you want. But even marijuana has been known to, it has, yes, THC has some health benefits, but it also can cause some brain cell, um, it can also cause some damage to the brain, from what I understand. And, again, that's, feel free to share a different opinion. But from what I understand, you're not like damaging your brain by doing this. And in fact, there's a lot of evidence that you're actually repairing your brain. So I think we should be talking about it more. But also, like I said, I'm not endorsing it. I'm not telling you to go do it. If you don't want to do it, just listen to my experience. And then you can kind of, there are other ways to get into godlike states, or to see visions that don't require psychedelics. You can do it in meditation. You can have out-of-body experiences in meditation. So, yeah, make the decision for yourself. Be informed. Please make sure that you're very honest and aware of any medical conditions, because there have been people that have died because they had heart conditions, or conditions were too extreme, or the practitioner was irresponsible and mixed too many things together in dangerous circumstances. So just be careful. But also, I think that this is such an exciting thing, and it's been suppressed because back in when this was first discovered, people were starting to figure out that, wait a minute, we are so much more powerful than we know. There's so much more beyond this reality. And I'm not necessarily a conspiracy theorist, but so I don't want to say they don't want us to know how powerful we are, because I don't even know that it's that malicious. I think sometimes it is. I don't think it's like the people are trying to keep us small, but it does not benefit the powers that be for us to recognize our own power. And it threatens our concept of their concept of reality, and it threatens the notion that there are people that are superior to other people, and once we start to realize that we have all of these incredible abilities and superpowers, then we become a threat to the establishment. Then we become not so easy to control. So, interesting food for thought. Thank you for listening. I'll have more guests soon. I've been sick, so I've been on hiatus, but I'm coming back with some more wonderful guests. and looking forward to having them on soon. Be well. Love you all. We are all one. Thank you.